How's everyone doing today? It's a rough day. It's not a fun day. And my God, well, to be fair, February 8th is the day for me. It's February 9th, so I'm a day removed from Daniel Bryan's retirement, but I'm still pretty much in shock. And, it's weird because I'm in shock, but at the same time, I have this sense of, I guess, relief. Same thing Daniel Bryan was talking about. If you guys didn't see the retirement speech last night, it probably was the greatest segment in Raw history, or one of the greatest segments in Raw history. This thing was absolutely awesome. And what's crazy about it is it was so real, and it was so genuine, and it was so awesome. It was really a great moment. A couple things that I really just want to hit on. First, I think it goes without saying that Daniel Bryan has had probably one of the greatest careers ever in wrestling. Um, Regardless of how long he spent in a certain company, regardless of how many great matches he's had this ability to connect with people in the way that not a lot of people can. Um, it's really weird because I think Daniel Bryan is a one-off in the sense that he got over when he really wasn't supposed to. Like, I know you can say that about a lot of people. You can say that about a Bret Hart. You can say that about a CM Punk, like those kind of people. But there was something really different about Daniel Bryan. Think about like Hulk Hogan, Rock, and Austin, who are, in my opinion, the only three people in the history of World Wrestling Entertainment that can match up, if like that can match up to Daniel Bryan's popularity. Hulk Hogan was from the 80s, the era of the comic book superhero type wrestler with the big buff muscles and the cartoony gimmicks. And I'm not knocking Hogan. That's what was in the 80s, and he did it better than anyone. Thus, he was the top guy and everyone got behind him. With Rock and Austin, that was during the Attitude Era where Rock abandoned his clean cut image for a more cutting edge kind of feel, which got the crowd behind him. And I'm not, again, not saying it was simply chance for The Rock. He knew what he had to do and he was great at it. And same thing with Austin. Ditched the whole ringmaster thing. He was less prim and proper. He became Austin 316. Dropping F bombs all the time, drinking beer, beating up Mr. McMahon. But like, they were signs of the time, if you know what I mean. Like that's what was the in thing. And again, I'm not knocking those three guys. That's what was in, and that's what was in. There's nothing around that. But you look at Daniel Bryan, and he was not supposed to be in. Sure, the 2000s and the 2010s have become the era of the wrestler, of the in-ring worker where your work rate is your top priority. Sure, that is the case, but WWE did not like cater their product to that fan mindset, if you know what I mean. WWE ran with the comic book superheroes. WWE ran with the cutting edge Attitude Era stuff. For WWE, they're still running with the clean cut PG Cena Orton product. And there's nothing wrong with Cena and Orton, but they're not trying to they're not trying to feed to every indie fanboy, if you know what I mean. Daniel Bryan was not meant to get over. And it wasn't even like they had plans for him. They had zero plans for him. Daniel Bryan is just so significant in the fact that he literally got over when he was not supposed to. And again, there are plenty of other guys who can say that, and there are plenty of other guys who didn't fit the mold, if you know what I mean. Bret Hart, Benoit, Jericho, Michaels to an extent. Even though Michaels was kind of favored by Mr. McMahon, but like, it didn't really fit the mold. He kind of had to break through. Daniel Bryan like changed everything, and in like my opinion, you really can't replicate something like that. You really can't. And it's sad to see him go, but at the same time, it's really good to like. It felt really good to see him go, knowing that he went out on top. Now, granted, if he wrestled for another 5 years, I highly doubt. Like, he would really have to fuck something up for the fans to kind of like not even turn against him, just become like a lukewarm reaction to him. He was going to be over forever. He was everyone's favorite forever, if you know what I mean. There was no way Bryan was going to lose any sort of connection with the fans. But he's going out now when he's at his peak, which is a shame because I know there were more great matches he could have had. Could have had great matches with Rollins, with Owens, Zayn, Atami, Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura. More and more people could have had Styles. Like, that was my dream match for WrestleMania 32, Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles. And am I going to get it? No, but you know what? I'm willing to sacrifice, that one great match we could have had for Daniel Bryan to stay safe for the rest of his life. Because, I mean, at first, when he hurt his neck and everything and he was losing all that feeling, you thought, okay, maybe he's going to have to take a year off for his neck to heal. Neck injuries are serious. But the big in thing are the concussions. And concussions are not just affecting wrestling, they're affecting all other contact sports, namely, American football. But, how many wrestlers have died prematurely? I mean, look at Benoit. Like, I hate to speak Benoit, but, like, do you know how similar, not only how similar their styles were, but how their careers were? It was panning out to the point where I'm like, oh my God, Daniel Bryan is going to die because he just is mirroring Chris Benoit so much. I think, they catch it early and Daniel Bryan can go and live peacefully for the rest of his life. He could probably live into his elderly years. He can have a nice family with Brie Bella and everything. I think there's that sadness involved and that little shock of that, like, the reality sets in of, like, I'm never going to see this guy wrestle again. It sucks. Like, it really does. And I'm still, like, shocked over it. And I'm like, I'm never going to forget where I was when I read the news that Daniel Bryan had retired. I'll remember exactly where I was. I'll remember exactly how I felt and how the wind just got knocked out of me. And it's like, Daniel Bryan is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I think I'll put him at number 3, only behind Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels. And I think that's solely for nostalgic purposes. Daniel Bryan has made me more excited about wrestling than anyone else has ever had in my entire life. I mean, like, when I was a kid, I got excited when all my favorite wrestlers came out, but, like, as a teenager and, like, all throughout high school, like, what's so crazy about my high school years was, like, that was the rise of Daniel Bryan all throughout high school, because I started high school in fall of 2011, and, I was a freshman in high school when WrestleMania 28 took place. Of course, Daniel Bryan loses in 18 seconds. And I mean, like, for all intents and purposes, that was probably Daniel Bryan's best match ever, because that made him the biggest guy in the world. And just all throughout high school, I saw the rise of Daniel Bryan. It climaxed in my junior year at WrestleMania 30 when he won the title. And again, that's just something I'm so incredibly thankful for, that I was able to be in the Superdome when he won that title. And I remember everything about how I felt. I don't even remember, like, the matches. Like, I had to refresh. Like, if you asked me, like, right after WrestleMania 30 what some of the spots and all the matches were, I couldn't tell you. Just the one thing there are two things I'll vividly remember is when I was watching the promo for the Daniel Bryan Triple H match. I just remember when that song was playing, that song by Imagine Dragons, and they were just showing all the highlights of his career so far. I just remember thinking, like, he's winning the title tonight. Like, there's no way. Like, I mean, I was confident going in, but there was always that doubt, like, oh, what if WWE fucks over the fans last second just to get back at him or something? I remember just watching that promo, and I just thought, he's winning the title tonight. And then when everyone was going crazy during the triple threat match, everyone nearly had a heart attack because Batista hit a Batista bomb on Orton, and, like, they had the closest 3 count of all time, and everyone for a second thought Batista was going to win the title. When Daniel Bryan hit that running knee on Batista and went for the yes lock, I just remember just signaling to every single person around my group and like in my section of the audience in the Superdome. I just said, guys, this is it. He's winning the title. And then, like, 5 seconds later, Batista tapped out, and then everyone just fucking erupted. It was the craziest thing ever. Like, I'd never experienced anything like that. It was just, I never had I been more hyped for anything. Like, WrestleMania 30 was the most excited I've ever been for any wrestling show. And his retirement, like, fast forwarding, it got to me more than anyone. And I love Shawn Michaels, but, like, and I loved Edge, I loved Flair and all those guys. I loved them. And, like, their retirements were sad. And I mean, like, I choked up at all 3 of those, but for Daniel Bryan's, I legitimately cried. It was really sad. And it wasn't like, it's not even me being sensitive, even though I know I am. It's just how genuine that retirement was, and how in a sense, like when Ric Flair, Edge, and Shawn Michaels retired, like to a lesser extent with Edge, because he kind of got the rug pulled out from under him, but you were kind of ready for those careers to end. Ric Flair was in his 50s, you knew it was winding down, and when they started that, if you lose another match, your career's over, you kind of knew where it was going, and you knew at WrestleMania his career was going to be over. HBK, same thing. When they made the Streak vs. Career match, you kind of knew, like, all right, HBK is probably going out. And then with Edge, Edge didn't really get that big of a send-off because he got the rug pulled out from under him, but his career was winding down. He was going to end it soon. So I was like, there was an acceptance there. With Daniel Bryan, it's like you see him and you see that he's in the prime of his career. He looks to be in great shape. He's only 34 years old. I'm sorry, the heater in my room is extremely loud if you guys can hear that. He's only 34 years old. You think he'd be able to go forever, but like what you just can't see is that inside his head, there are some injuries that we just can't see because they're invisible. They're invisible injuries, and concussions are no joke. I guess if there's a silver lining in all of it, it's the fact that, over the past 2 years, so like for 2014 and 2015, Daniel Bryan was active for only about 8 months of that, and he hasn't been active on the roster since, April of 2015. So we've gotten used to not seeing Daniel Bryan, I guess. We've gotten used to life without Daniel Bryan in a wrestling ring. Granted, we always had that hope, and every time a new guy came up to the roster, or every time someone started getting a little heat on him, we'd think, oh, it would be a great match for Daniel Bryan, because we know how great Daniel Bryan is. And it sucks that, like, you can't see that anymore, and you kind of just have to accept the fact. But, like, at the end of the day, as much as I'd love to see Daniel Bryan wrestle one more match or have, matches with all these great guys, because I know he can have a 5-star classic and all that stuff, it's worth it to know that my favorite wrestler's legacy, or one of my favorite wrestler's legacies, will not be tarnished by, like, some sort of premature death, or, like, we won't have one of those, like, oh, if we only knew how injury prone his head was, maybe we could have done something, when he's, like, 45 and he's in the hospital on the verge of death because of all these brain injuries. As much as it sucks, and as much as his career got cut short, and how many great matches we might be deprived of, it's for the best for Daniel Bryan, because at the end of the day, I remember during his retirement speech, he was like, he said, the fans don't owe me anything, which might be true to him, but, like, we as fans owe it to Daniel Bryan to keep him healthy, and, like, I remember I was texting my brother afterwards, after Raw went off the air, and I was just like, oh man, it was so sad and everything. Like, and I just said, like, it sucks to see him go. And he's like, yeah, but, like, think about when we were watching Night of Champions and Sting, who, is one of our favorite wrestlers, collapsed in the ring. And it's like, I don't think, like, that isn't something wrestling fans should see. They shouldn't see their favorite wrestlers barely be able to move like Sting did. And I remember when I was watching Night of Champions, I got so scared when Sting was running, like, for, like, that clothesline or something, and he just collapsed. And again, that's the same thing of, I wish I could see Sting versus Undertaker, but if it means Sting has to kill himself for me to do it, I don't want him to do it, because I don't want Sting to get seriously injured or be wheelchair bound for the rest of his life. It's not worth it. And granted, WWE could have done that at WrestleMania 31, and I'm going to bring that up forever, but that is another topic for another video. This is about Daniel Bryan. So, at the end of the day, and I'm sure everyone understands that. I'm sure there's I don't think I'm giving mind-blowing news to anyone. I think everyone with a brain can see that, can, like, see where I'm coming from with this whole Daniel Bryan thing of, it sucks, but it's for the best. I think everyone gets that. But I mean, like, Daniel Bryan's legacy can't be taken away from him. He's no doubt a future Hall of Famer. He's going to main event the Hall of Fame. He will main event anything he goes to. No matter what he does, he will always be over. I think he could be a great general manager or something like that. But, like, that's another story for another day. Give the man time to decompress. He has a lot to think about, but you can't match that. And I mean, like, what CM Punk said in his podcast with Cole Cabana is, like, no matter what they do to Daniel Bryan, no matter where his career goes, they can never take away that WrestleMania 30 main event. They can't. the biggest show of all time in WWE's eyes was WrestleMania 30. And that show, it wasn't even like Daniel Bryan was in the main event. Like think about it like that. Like Bret Hart and Chris Benoit, like they were in main event matches. The show was built around Daniel Bryan. Like, and I know, like at WrestleMania 10, WrestleMania 20, you had great title wins, but like you can't match Daniel Bryan's. And I mean, Bret Hart was super popular, and Chris Benoit was super popular, but like they did not have that type of popularity that Daniel Bryan had. He had that uncanny ability to get people to like him, you know, and it's just, it's crazy. Like, I just, how in this era of the work rate, it doesn't surprise me that everyone liked him, but he just, he just wouldn't slow down. He just, and it just got, it's so crazy to the, and like, I'm stumbling over my words because like I can't even collect my thoughts, but like, what's so crazy about Daniel Bryan's rise to fame is like, it felt like it was a collective effort. Like at the end of the day, it was Daniel Bryan's hard work and determination and great wrestling ability and ability to connect with the people that got him there. But when he won the title, it felt like we won the title. And I know I'm getting sentimental about this, and I know like some person who just stumbles along this video who doesn't even know my channel or anything is gonna be like, dude, it's wrestling, calm down. And I know it's wrestling. I know this really isn't anything to get too worked up about, but it's a big deal. Like this guy like really changed everything, and he made wrestling exciting for so many people. And I've never been more excited. Like WrestleMania 30 was, I was so hyped for WrestleMania 30, even though I was in nosebleed seats, and even though I wasn't right there to see Daniel Bryan in like the front row, I still felt like I was a part of it. And I mean, like, you know, the hijacking Raw, like that championship ascension ceremony will always stick out. The Occupy Raw thing, and I mean, like, I don't know. I remember Dave Meltzer mentioned it, but like how everything in Daniel Bryan's WWE career was just based off of like I think the word was like miscues or something like that. Like if they didn't do the 18 seconds, Daniel Bryan would be over, but would he be that over? If WWE didn't fuck up Royal Rumble 2014, and if everyone just completely turned on Batista, would Daniel Bryan be in that main event slot? If CM Punk hadn't quit, you know, it's stuff like that. Everything just fell into place for Daniel Bryan, and it's just like, it just seemed like that's where he was meant to be, you know. And it's like, call it fate, but I mean, that's what it seems like. And I get, again, like, it's just, it didn't last that long. I mean, he had a long career. He had like 18, 16, whatever, how many year career. You know, he had tons of great matches. ROH, I think, was the peak of his like in-ring ability and like in-ring like psychology and stuff like that. Like some of those ROH matches are incredible. And he had great matches in WWE as well. You know, the match with Cena, the match with Sheamus, the matches with Punk, match with Ziggler, like those were great matches. And then in ROH, you know, he had the matches with Nigel McGuinness, matches with Kenta. He had that match with Punk. You know, just crazy, amazing matches. Like he's one of the greatest wrestlers in the world. But I think what will always make Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, whatever you want to call him, what will set him apart from everyone else is just that ability to connect with the people. And I know Hogan, Rock, and Austin had that ability too, but they had the advantage of the company being on their side. The company was not on Daniel Bryan's side. And I mean, sure, I'm sure every single higher up in WWE loves Daniel Bryan now, and they loved him, you know, in 2014 when he was, you know, getting all these great reactions. But like back when he first started in 2012, 2013, there was nothing for him. He did not have any sort of support, you know. And to see the fans rise him up to superstardom is fucking incredible. It's crazy. And like, honestly, that really can't be duplicated. So, I mean, again, it sucks. Like, it really does. It sucks to know that Daniel Bryan will never wrestle again, and it's heartbreaking. But it's also great knowing that he'll be just fine, that he'll live a happy life, probably, hopefully, a pain-free life. You know, he might have some nagging injuries, but it's not going to be anything horrible or anything unbearable. He's not going to, you know, fly off the rail and go crazy like other wrestlers have. And like as far as we know, he's not addicted to anything. Like he can just live a normal life, which is what he always wanted to do, you know. And like again, I'm not trying to like get emotional over Daniel Bryan, but all he ever wanted to do was wrestle, and I think that's the other heartbreaking thing. Like here's just a guy who all his life all he's wanted to do was just wrestle. And you know, never was about the money. It was never about anything else. You know, it was just about wrestling. And like I think that's what really got to me about his retirement promo was just like everything he said was so legit, and like he didn't really try to make it about his career or his character. He just wanted to just say like how thankful he was to be able to wrestle for 16 years, which is all he wanted to do. And again, it sucks. It sucks that we can't see any more great WrestleMania matches, and we can't see any more great Daniel Bryan matches because we know they're there. But it's just for the best. And again, like what I said, like the rise of Daniel Bryan was all throughout high school, and I'm really happy, especially now, that I made my senior quote in my yearbook. I made it yes. For those of you that don't know, like my senior quote in my yearbook, it says my name, it has my picture, and then right under it, it just says yes, and then in quotes, and then it just says Daniel Bryan. That's all it says. It's not even three yeses, it's just one yes with an exclamation point, Daniel Bryan. That's all it is, and I think that's a very fitting quote, for me at least, because that was my high school experience. I was just so like excited throughout high school because it was Daniel Bryan season. You know, it was so crazy, and I do remember just how adamant I was because I told my parents, and I mean they weren't like fighting it or anything. They're just like, "Is that really what you want?" And I was like, "Yes, that's definitely the quote for me. That's what I need my senior quote to be. I need it to be yes," and I'm really happy I made it yes because it's definitely worth it. I was going to make it a Chris Jericho quote, like halfway through my high school career. And then that's when like Daniel Bryan really started getting up there. And then after WrestleMania 30, I was like, I know what my quote's going to be. It's going to be yes. And I'm happy that I made that decision. And overall, we have a lot to remember Daniel Bryan by. Like 2013 was his year. 2014, you know, he had that amazing rise. There's nothing to be ashamed of. He reached the top. He got there. He got to a place that most guys can't even dream of. And not only did he get like Cena has won WWE championships at WrestleMania, but think about the reaction. Sure, there were people that cheered him, but there were also people that booed him, and they just felt like, oh, cool, there's another guy that won a title at WrestleMania. But like when Daniel Bryan won, it felt like we won the title. It felt different. And that's something you can't duplicate. So I'm really fortunate to have seen that. I really never got to see a top guy rise to the top, but I did get to see it with Daniel Bryan. And I'm more than grateful to see something like that and to see someone who will never be duplicated come into the company and completely change wrestling in and of itself, change WWE, change everything. And there's plenty of things to be proud of in his career. And I'm more than happy to call myself a Daniel Bryan fan. And that's it, guys. There's really nothing else to say, but I just have to say, like, I'm so proud that Daniel Bryan got to have that career. I'm so happy that he got to experience everything he wanted to experience, and I wish him nothing but the best in his future endeavors. And I mean that wholeheartedly. I don't mean that in the cold, passive-aggressive way. I wish Daniel Bryan the best. And when in doubt, you gotta just say yes. God, that was lame.